back to the Within Reach podcast. I am joined by my co-host Krystal today.
Hello, good to be back.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a busy week, but it's Friday. Got the half marathon on Sunday, so that's exciting. And also my birthday too, so 2 in 1.
Wow, big weekend for you.
Yes.
I'm excited for today's episode. I feel like this is going to help our listeners get to know you on a bit of a deeper level.
Definitely. It was quite a big event in my life and I learned a lot from it, so I'm excited to share.
It'll be good, but let's kind of recap for a second. You said the half marathon. Some people are probably thinking, oh, cool, I didn't know she was doing that. So talk us through this. What's happening on Sunday?
That's funny. I guess for me, now that I did do my first full marathon last year, a half marathon doesn't feel like much. So this time around, I'm also doing it for a fun day. I've been coaching clients that are doing it, so I'm excited to be in the environment. I'm not going for any set time. To beat my time would always be great. But yeah, I've been training. I've never really stopped training, to be honest. Did my first full last November 25th, and just kept up my training. And nearly a half marathon this Sunday. So it starts at 9 a.m. Aiming for under 2 hours. So we'll go with that.
I'm excited to hear how you go. But you've got some clients that are going to be in this one with you.
Yes, and I'm very excited for that. So I've been working with my clients for, one would be like 12, 13 weeks, and the other one I've been working with for about 16 weeks. And for one of them, it's their first full marathon. One, it's their first half marathon. Another one, it's a second half, but it's been a few years since she's done one. So it's just been so amazing to see their progress and their commitment. They've just been smashing their training. So I'm really excited to see them on the day and see them cross the finish line.
That's really cool. I think especially for someone like myself, where I've spoken about this before, like you're definitely more like performance-based kind of coach, and I just naturally fall into the aesthetics category. It's cool to hear the difference in how like the coaching is, and that there's like an event that you're, I guess, training for and that your clients are going to be crossing the finish line at. I think that would be such a nice journey to be on with them. Definitely.
And then I know for myself, like what marathons have done for me in my own life and my own mindset. And so it's just so exciting for me to share that with others and help them have the tools to feel as best as they possibly can and just feel that accomplishment when they finish. So I'm very grateful to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Now we're going to dive deep in today's episode. Today we're going to be speaking a bit more in depth about you and understanding a little bit more about who you are, where you came from, and some of the things that have happened in your life. Now, I know there's one specific event that you and I have both spoken about and that you spoke about at the beginning of the episode, but I'm actually going to kind of pull the rug out from underneath you a little bit, and I'm going to start a little bit further down the track. I would love for you to kind of just give us, I know we've done this once before, but for any new listeners, give us a quick rundown of like who you are, where you've come from, and what your story is.
Yeah, I guess on that first episode, it was a very brief blip into my life as a whole, which will be hard to put into a short episode, I guess. But I grew up in the Hawkesbury, which is an hour or so northwest of Sydney. So like on the river, nice, like we lived on like 1.25 acres. And so I was always a kid that loved being outdoors and did like little athletics. And so I was always very active. We even lived in Queensland for a fair few years of my primary school life, but then came back to the Hawkesbury, to the same place, and did my high school years there. And as I said, I always was active and always had great groups of friends around. And then throughout high school, I guess like we stopped doing a little athletics, and then I was quite a very unhealthy kid, which I think I mentioned this on the first episode. I have to remember. If I couldn't recognize myself if I was to meet a child version of me now. I never ate any vegetables. I would go to Coke or orange juice before I went to water. And I just remember one day, I think I was taking my dog for a walk and I got really puffed. I think I was like 16, 17. And that was when I started to actually realize what I put in my body and how I treated my body is going to affect how I feel. So then I was working at a cafe and started to be more curious about nutrition, about like what foods made me feel good, what didn't. And I was also very experimental. So I went vegan, I went keto, I went paleo. I tried so many different styles of training. And so I would say I learned a lot of things the hard way, because I never really had proper guidance around me. I love my family. And my sister was a sprinter, but I didn't know too much else. I never had a coach or anything. So yeah, it was just me just figuring it all out. I went traveling, and that it was a big part of making me grow as a human. As I heard you and Spads talk about earlier about getting out of your hometown and just having more life experiences. So traveling Europe for 4 months as a 19-year-old by myself for the first few months of it, that got me out of my comfort zone and just opened my eyes to how big the world is. And came back into this same old place, same old things, and I was over it.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to move to Newcastle. Well, I stayed in the Hawkesbury for a bit after that, became a travel agent, and then moved to Newcastle.
I didn't know that you went traveling overseas by yourself.
Oh.
I don't think we've spoken about that.
Okay. Yeah, I was only 19, and I booked the trip and told my parents later. It was only meant to be 10 weeks in Europe, and then when I was over there, I just fell in love with the place, and I was like, well, why not just stay a bit longer? I had no responsibilities or anything tying me back home.
That's typical rebel behaviour.
Yep. So I did a Greek Island hopper to start with, and then I did this thing called bus about, where you hop on, hop off. So it's not a set tour. So it was really nice to have that sort of flexibility to be able to jump on the buses and kind of see the same people, but also have so much of your own freedom where you're not stuck with the tour. And then once I cancelled my flight home, postponed it a few months, my oldest sister ended up coming with me and traveling for the last 5 or 6 weeks. And we did Eastern Europe and Prague and Budapest and Croatia Sail and Oktoberfest. And lots of fun memories. And I can't believe that was 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about what happened after. So you got back from Europe and you went, I'm in the same place, I'm doing the same things, I am having this realization. What was the realization, and do you think that it was based off of you spending all that time overseas?
Yeah, great question. So I remember coming back and I've had all of these amazing experiences and felt like I changed so much as a person, and then realizing everyone around me hadn't. They'd still been doing the same old things, going to the same job, doing the same things on weekends. And so I knew I couldn't change the people. I couldn't change them. So I had to change me. And I got my hair cut, I dyed my hair, I got rid of a lot of clothes, I changed my room around. And that was actually when I booked myself in for my first half marathon. So good lead way into that. And I knew I just, needed something to work towards. And then also I wasn't the healthiest on that Europe trip. So I was definitely excited to, get my health back on track for that. And then, it was through training from that first half marathon that, made me fall in love with it. A love-hate relationship with running, but I'm still doing it, still going into events. So it's safe to say that one changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel, it sounds like that was kind of the first, I guess, inkling that it was something that you wanted to do, right?
Yeah, I remember at the time I was like, just tick it off the bucket list type thing. And I had no idea how to pace myself. I was only doing HIIT training and running. I wasn't doing proper strength training, get shin splints all the time, and lots of reoccurring injuries. And I didn't exactly know how to fuel myself correctly. And then I started the race, and I remember seeing there was a 2-hour pacer, and I flew in front of him at the start. I was like, he's going so slow. And then he overtook me throughout the course. And then when I finished, I was so proud of myself of accomplishing something like that, and then also thought to myself, I'm never doing it again, or like I couldn't ever imagine myself doing a full. And I did stop running for probably like 6 months after that. One, I think I didn't train because I didn't train well. It wasn't planned, and having those injuries and stuff, and also like I was running to my absolute hardest every single run, so then I kind of lost that enjoyment a little bit. And then, yeah, if we fast forward a little bit through coaching and more training, where I've learned to enjoy the process and know that you don't have to go to 100% every time. Yeah, so from that one, I really found the connection between my mind and my body, and all those cliche quotes of like the body can achieve what the mind believes, and all those things. I remember I trained at Anytime Fitness, and I used to run on the treadmill, and there was all the quotes on the wall, and I just stare at that one. Yeah,
It helped you get through it though, right?
Yeah, it definitely helped me get through it.
Yeah. So how many half marathons have you done now?
I mean, proper events wise, where you get a medal?
No, just generally.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say probably 6.
Yeah.
More.
And how many full marathons have you done?
1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did every single one go smoothly?
No. Okay. Not in the slightest.
What are some things that you have learnt, been through, remembered from those experiences, or those like training for the marathons, half marathons, going through them? What's some of the biggest things that come up when I ask that question?
So last year, actually no, I did a half marathon event, and that would have been December, not last year, year before. And then that was the point where I was like, okay, it's time to do a full. And so I was training for about 5 months. And also at the time, I got a program off a coach, but it was just like write me a 12-week thing. It wasn't week to week. And I was still doing my own stuff. But I also, looking back at that now, I would still train on an empty stomach and still not feeling myself right. Lost my cycle for a couple months. And yeah, looking back at it now, I realize I still didn't have a great relationship with body and self at that time. And then I did a 30-kilometer run, and that was like 5 weeks out from my marathon day. And I got this tendon overuse issue. On my program, it was actually meant to be a split run day, like an AM run and a PM run. So you had time to recover, but I was like, I'll just do the full thing. And yeah, so I got that tendon issue, which was an overuse issue. And so that was a big learning curve to not go too hard, too fast. And I struggled to walk, so I couldn't run or anything. So I was so upset that I couldn't run, and the marathon was like 5 weeks out. So I was doing a lot of cross training, so learning that you can keep your fitness up in other ways, and riding a bike, swimming laps, focusing on strength work as well, and also learning a lot about how much the body needs to recover and rest. I think I was going like so hard all the time. And then 3 weeks out from the marathon, I was going for a walk around the block because I couldn't run because of my leg. And I was like so close to home, already walked for 40 minutes, and I see this man walking a dog coming towards me, and I didn't really think anything of it. Something that I haven't told everyone about is that this dog only had 3 legs. He was a big staffy, and I could see he was trying to sit, and the guy was trying to pull it with a lead, and so I was like, I'll give us some space. So the dog's sitting on the pathway. He's standing on the road behind a car. I've walked around that car, so given us a fair few meters space, nodded hello as you do, keep walking. Next thing I know, I'm on the ground with this dog attached to my leg, and I'm seeing bits of my flesh go places. And for a moment there, I thought I was going to lose my leg. It was terrifying. It's a bit of a blur, to be honest. I don't know how long I was on the ground for. I think he must have ripped the dog off my leg because I had like chunks gone. Because for those that don't know, staffies get lockjaw. So he's gotten locked onto my leg, and he managed to get him off. I've managed to get up hysterically crying and call my partner Jake. All I could blurt out was just like, come outside, because I was so close to home. And by that point, like, neighbours had come out, someone's like grabbed me and sat me down and wrapped a towel around my leg, and I was hysterics. But also, again, looking back at it, the main thing I was upset about was I couldn't do the marathon that was in 3 weeks. You'd think I'd have bigger issues at that point. That I'm there with my leg dripping with blood. So someone was on the phone to the ambulance, so that was taking too long. So Jake ended up driving me to John Hunter Hospital, because we were only like 10 minutes from there. And we arrive, a nurse comes and looks at my leg and was like, oh, can you walk? There's no wheelchairs. And I couldn't. And so I have an arm around Jake. This random man out front of emergency runs over, comes and helps, lifts me up like a baby and carries me into emergency. Yeah, that... And then the triage nurses saw me and gave me like a tetanus shot and cleaned it up. And again, I'm lying on the table just going in and out of crying. And the nurse just says to me, are you crying just because of the pain or because of like the situation? And I just looked at her. I was like, wow. I was like, I think both. And I realized it was like most traumatic thing that had happened to me, but the emergency nurses would see things like that and worse all the time.
It's like they're I do notice that, and it's like they just don't have any type of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like no sympathy, because it's like they see it every single day. It's just like another day in the office.
Yeah.
And they have no sympathy.
No. So that was quite interesting. I was just like, oh, like maybe I should just toughen up.
No, I think they just need to be more compassionate.
Yeah, it probably would have been nice. I mean, the nurses that actually looked after me, because I was in hospital for about 9 days. And
really?
Yeah. So like, I'm very, very grateful for our like system where I didn't have to pay anything being a public hospital, but being public, I just had to wait. So even in emergency, I got there at about 6 p.m, sat there with my legs dripping with blood until 1:30 a.m. And then the first doctor that saw me was like, oh, we'll just clean you up and get you out of here. And like, this wound was deep. So he's like, I'll just take a photo and show my boss. Luckily he did that, because I was needing surgery. So the toughest part about hospital would have been them telling me to fast, where obviously no food, couldn't even have water. I could only have water, sips of water when I took my medication, the pain meds, and then also no coffee, which that's when I realized how bad of a coffee addiction I had when I had throbbing headaches.
Oh, I've had that before. It's bad.
Yeah. And it was 10 p.m. at night, and I was like, nurse, like I've got this throbbing headache. I've had all of the pain meds. That's not letting it go away. And she's like, are you a coffee drinker? I was like, oh, I literally had to have a coffee at 10 p.m. at night so I could sleep. But being told to fast, and you're just in this dazed state, just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then at 7 p.m. at night, you get told that you're not being seen. And that would just break me every day, because I was like so fatigued and tired and sad. And
so what, you'd have to fast every single day for them to then at the end of the day say, oh, don't worry about it, you can eat now.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like a concentration camp.
Yeah. Luckily they had some pretty good restaurants downstairs. So like there was a big snitty meal that I'd get every time that happened. And so that happened like a couple of days in a row. I had surgery probably I think it was the second or third day I was there. Then they told me it'd be 2 days. I ended up waiting 5 days for the next one. But the reason I had to have 2 was because the first one, they went in and there was actually an infection that started in the muscle, because there was one puncture of the teeth that got that deep. So they had to clean it up and attach this tube to my leg that was kind of this vacuum machine that helped with the recovery. So that was pretty weird, waking up from surgery thinking I was just going to have stitches and be out of there, and realize I've got this tube out of my leg. And also that point in time where I obviously couldn't walk, so I was using a wheelchair and crutches, and everything just was really hard. And coming from someone that's just so active all the time, that was really challenging mentally, to just have to sit down and lay down all day. But two things that got me through was one, the support from everyone around me. I got sent and given so many flowers and chocolates and so many visitors. So it was like really kind to know how many people cared. And also the nurses that really made my stay, really nice and really looked after me. And I got moved around the hospital a few times. And then the last room that I was in, it was me and three other women. And they had lifelong conditions or cancers and tumours that they had removed. And so it was really eye-opening experience. So whilst, like, again, worst thing happened to me, but I was going to make a full recovery and be out of there. And these women and pretty much everyone in that hospital spend their whole lives in and out, or not able to walk at all. So yeah, it was a very eye-opening experience, that's for sure.
Mm. It sounds like it was one of those ones that you'll never forget.
Never. I'm scarred for life, literally.
So what happened after you got out of hospital with recovery, you getting back into your normal life?
So it was like non-weight bearing for about a month. But I was able to get around on like one crutch after about 3 weeks. And because I lost a bit of length in my calf because one, there was also a lot of inflammation in there, but essentially they like cut it open and like stitched it back together. So I went and saw a physio, and it was like definitely absolutely no jumping or any sort of like running or hopping movement. It was probably about 2 or 3 months after. So I just had to take it really slow, and again, quite testing for me since I'm one to just want to be out and doing things all the time and hit my step count and all that kind of stuff. So I kept myself busy in other ways, and that was actually when I started my coaching Instagram.
Oh, so that was the February, was it?
Yeah.
So this was February of this year? Last year. So 2023.
2023, yeah. Since I had time off work, I made myself busy in other ways. And then it was around my birthday, which is this time of year last year that I was still in my recovery. I had a lot of scar tissue. I had to massage it every day, and with this scar gel cream, I would even go to my friend at Stretch 360 where she did this cupping over my scar, which felt so weird. But that really helped, and got slowly got the length back to my calf. And got my support team of like my coach and my physio. I jumped the gun a little bit too early. I tried to run before the physio told me to, and I got instant quite a bad pain in my hip. Again, that length wasn't there yet. And then so I just had to do lots of single-legged work, balance work, a lot of just building up the strength in my calf and my tendons around my ankle again. Even though it was only 3 or 4 weeks non-weight bearing, you can lose muscle and like the tendon strength quite quickly. So I had to build that back up. And it would have been 5 months since the actual attack happened where I was feeling pretty good. I was kind of like back to normal with my leg. Like I was back to all my strength training. I was back to running. So that was like, okay, I'm going back for the marathon. And I was looking for events that were on, but none was lining up with the time. I was so determined to get one done last year because it was such an emotional time for me recovering through that dog attack, that I just wanted to just prove it to myself that I could do it. And I'm weirdly grateful that it happened because the second time round with training, I was a lot better in terms of relationship with myself as well, and food and training. And I didn't lose my cycle that time. I was tracking purely coming from a place of eating enough. And I remember coming to you in the office one day, but I'm eating 2,500 to 3,000 calories, and I was still kind of losing weight.
Yeah, I actually was going to bring that up. I remember that conversation, and you were like, you said, I ate like over 3,000 calories this week or something, and you dropped another kilo. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It makes complete sense.
Yeah. And to give you a rough idea, when the first time I was training for the marathon at the start of last year, I was only in 2,000 and 2,200, and I was restricting myself to have more than that. So yeah, my relationship with food has been amazing, and it's just created so much more freedom with myself around that too. So that was really good, and also being more relaxed as well. I was very hard on myself and so tunnel focused on that marathon that like nothing else mattered at the start of the year, whereas the second time round, after going through quite a traumatic time, I was more relaxed and I enjoyed it more.
It's interesting to hear like where you ended up going with it, because you could have been the sort of person that's like, that's it, I quit, it's a sign from the universe, whatever. But you, and I know this about you, you are so determined as a person to do and get whatever it is that you want. But for you to then go, okay, let's give it another shot, and then to nail it as well, I think that that's really cool and quite honourable, because so many people would have just given up.
Yeah, and like those thoughts crossed my mind. I'd be lying if I said that they didn't, but I recognized that, and I was like, well, I have got a choice here. Do I use it as an excuse, like, woe is me, I'm never going to run again, and just take pity from it? Or I can look at the positive side, see how grateful I am to make a full recovery, and hopefully be an example for someone else, or like be a bit of an inspiration for someone else, even though you've been through a tough time. Be a bit hard to relate to a dog attack, but that could be anything, exactly. And just coming back from that and finding, like, having the resilience and the discipline to get back on your feet and finding the positive side of things.
I can 100% relate to that, 100%. So I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it, but like, do you know what happened with the dog? And with
it got put down.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
So what happened with, like, I know you said it was all a bit of a blur, but like with the dog, with the owner of the dog, with the neighbors, like how did all of that happen? Do you know?
So the man that was walking the dog, it was actually his mum's dog. Right. And it was they told me it was the first time that he walked the dog. And I also found out that he only got that leg removed a month prior.
Oh, okay.
Or like fairly recently, because he was an old dog. And
do you know why the leg was removed? I mean, it doesn't really matter. I'm just so curious.
Yeah.
So interested.
Yeah. So yeah, the actual owner of the dog is a woman, and she'd come out and she was like apologizing, and they were like, oh, I had no idea you'd do something like this, which of course you wouldn't, but also like the apologizers meant nothing to me at that time.
Yeah.
But she was good in the fact that she was staying in touch. She was calling me while I was in hospital to find out how I was doing, and because I had I think I made a report about the dog, or we had to make a report, and so yeah, they made sure the dog got put down from the council or whoever that was.
Yeah. That's the process, is it? As soon as you get bit by a dog, that's it?
Yeah, because it was either be put down, or it has to like always have a cone around its head or something like that.
Like a muzzle type of thing?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, when I'd had phone calls with the owner, she had said he'd got his fourth leg removed fairly recently. He was old, and that they had a toddler at their house, and the dog was so friendly with the toddler.
It would probably have made them a bit worried moving forward, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, she said that she had already been thinking about putting him down, I guess, because like the pain that the dog had been in previously. And so, yeah, putting the pieces together, like seeing the guy walk the dog where the dog was trying to sit, he was trying to pull it. The dog was clearly in pain. He's not going to take it out on its owner. It just sees a stranger.
Yeah.
And thought my leg looked delicious.
No, it sounds like a really just shit situation for all involved. But what I do love about it is like there are so many lessons in it. There's so many things I've picked up. Like I'd love to know from you, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned from that experience?
I'll have to say resilience. So as we just said, I could have just said, oh, I'm never going to run again, use this as an excuse. And then just finding ways to get back on your feet and using that as a driver to keep going. I'll have to say that's number one. I could keep going.
Go on.
Well, because then I'd also say it also taught me to, I mean, I've always been a positive person and always looked for like to be grateful, but that was just an even bigger like wake up call of things that can happen in life. And so like when I was in the hospital for those 9 days, I'd hear like the helicopters come in where they're emergency helicopters. And so the reason my surgery kept getting pushed back was because there was a lot more important surgeries that needed to happen. So being aware of how there is so much trauma going on in the hospitals every single day. And so now that I'm out and living a normal life, just to being grateful for the small things. I remember having a shower for the first time standing without a plastic bag on my leg. I was like, yes. So just being grateful for the little things.
Yeah. That would have been a massive win for you though at that time. It's funny because like some of the little things when you look back on it actually weren't little, they were big things.
Yeah. My friends bought me this book called Rebound, which was about like athletes that were training for something and had quite bad injuries and getting back on their feet. And it was really helpful for me at that time. And it was good to read throughout recovery because it was like celebrate the small wins. And so it was a nice little reminder, like, yeah, when I could stand up in the shower, or when I walked with one crutch and then I walked without a crutch, and then was able to walk with flat-footed because for ages I couldn't get my foot flat. And so it was quite interesting to take it back to those small wins.
This is a really like insightful episode. I feel like there's so many lessons that so many people could take away from this. And as well, it's so interesting for me to hear the full story because like we've spoken about it before, but not to this extent. So for me to actually like visualize what went on during that time for you, it's nice to hear the full story and to actually understand a bit more about like what you went through.
Yeah, I guess like I've talked about it as like a brief story to so many people and like I can laugh about it now. But again, this is a rare occasion to go so in depth with it, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I would break down most days, and credit to Jake, he was there to hold me through all of it. That was a very, very tough time for me, and also when I was probably 6 or 8 weeks out of hospital, I went and got a skin check, and then I had pre-melanoma, so then I had to get surgery for that. And
was that in your leg?
It's like kind of on my bikini line.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in quite a vulnerable state already.
Yeah.
So I've never had surgery before in my life, and in the space of 2 months, I had probably 60 stitches and 4 surgeries.
Yeah.
And but I had so much support around me, and I guess if a big thing, if anyone is going through something, to not do it alone, even though you may be going through a very unique situation, lean on support around you because they want to help you, and it definitely made all the difference for me.
Yeah, I guarantee it would have, because you can be vulnerable. It's like it gives you permission to be vulnerable, and other people can kind of be the strength that you need rather than you having to be strong for yourself. Everyone tries to be strong for themselves, but then you're just going to keep getting beaten down, because sometimes we just need to not be strong. Like sometimes we need to just let ourselves feel how we want to feel rather than pushing it away. So having the support, like I'm sure you're so grateful for that. But I think that that's a really good point, because so many people just want to do it themselves or be their own strength without realizing that that's actually what connection's about, is like letting people help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this was a really good episode.
Yeah.
I am really grateful that you shared that, because I know that would have been really tough.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough time, but it's nice to share, and I hope that in a way that it can help someone else.
I'm sure it would. I'm so sure that it would have. Thank you guys so much for listening, and Krystal, thank you so much for sharing. And if anybody has any questions, any comments, anything that they've learnt from this episode, we would absolutely love for you to leave a comment, message us, share it with us, share it with those around you. But I really feel like this episode's been super insightful of like how you can go through shit and overcome it, how you can build yourself up, and how you can keep pushing forward no matter what. So thank you so much again.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.